Welcome to today's episode of the Innovators Insider Podcast. I'm Mike LaFleche, the professor. We also have Rich Doyle here, the user group guy. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Mike, how are you?
I am just fantabulous right now because we have, I don't know if this is a record for the amount of people we have on one show coming on, but I think it really, I think it is actually.
Yeah, if it's not, it's awfully close.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we've got a great show today, a lot of great guests. And let's go ahead and talk about our first guest. So a couple of years ago, I ran across something called Monday Model Live. It was a YouTube series hosted by a former colleague of mine and a friend, Too Tall Toby Schnaars. And I think what initially piqued my interest there was an episode of his Saturday speed modeling. I knew from an Onshape forum post that a brilliant young man that we had just recently welcomed into the Onshape community and quickly became a star was going to be one of the competitors. So I thought I'd like to check that out. And it turned out it was just an awful lot of fun to watch. And I commend Toby on the way it was handled, the way it was run. Just a really, really good hour and 15 minutes or so, and I enjoyed it very much. So Toby, Toby's well known in the CAD industry. He's got years and years of experience in technical support and customer support. He does presentations, quite often. He's an educator. He's an author. He's even a composer. He's the author and performer of the Fully Defined Every Time song. That he sometimes does live before he does presentations. I'm actually one of the lucky ones that have actually seen that live presentation. So without any further ado, we're really lucky to have him on the show today. Let's welcome Toby Schnarz. Hello, Toby.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, Toby. How you doing?
How you doing? Thanks a lot for having me on your show.
Yep. It's great to see you, and thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. I love what you guys are doing with this podcast. It's always a good time, seeing your episodes.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun too. So,
and Mike, what do you got back there behind you? Is that a Dan Electro or what is that?
Oh, I got a bunch of stuff. What do you want to see?
The guitar.
Well, that's a Brian May from Queen guitar.
Oh, nice.
So it's a red special, but it's black and gold. So it's
that's what threw me off. I knew it looked familiar. I couldn't place it though, because I'm like you said, I'm used to seeing it in like red and with the usually what it's got, a black pick guard.
Yeah. It's a sweet guitar, and I love Queen, favorite band. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good choice. Somebody says, "What's your favorite band?" You say Queen. That's like a solid choice, man.
Hard to go wrong.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Def Leppard guy myself, but Queen's up there in the top 10. So.
Yeah, Queen. They're okay, They're kind of a one-hit wonder, but whatever. Yeah. Queen. Yeah.
So Toby, like we said, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, thanks, man. I think it's really cool, me being a SolidWorks user, you guys having me on the show. I think it really speaks to kind of like the dream that I had a long time ago when it came to this type of an environment, which was really like just to get everybody together and kind of talk more about the things we have in common rather than the things that are different, and I think that when it comes to CAD modeling, there is a lot of similarities when you go from one package to the next. There is a lot of fundamental skills that everybody needs to practice. Like when you look at a physical model, if you're going to turn it into a 3D model, you got to decide what your starting sketch is going to be. You got to decide what your starting sketch plane is going to be. You got to try and take advantage of symmetry. If the model has symmetry, that could save you a lot of time, not only when you're creating the model, but when you're making changes. And certainly when it comes to parametric modeling, it's really important to create predictable models. And that's really what my song is all about. If you check out my YouTube channel, Too Tall Toby, you can listen to that song. And that's really what it's about. It's kind of how the song ends. It says, if you want to make predictable models, you got to make sure that you design intelligently, that you implement design intent, and that you fully define your sketches so that you can predict what's going to happen when you make a change. And so, way back in the day, probably like 2006, 2007, I had this idea, which was like, let's get all the different users from all the different CAD packages together. Let's figure out who the wizards are in each CAD package, whether it's, I know Onshape wasn't around at the time. I know it was Pro Engineer back then, or, the SolidWorks offering or some of the other offerings that are out there. Let's get the wizards together and have like a wizard battle. Right. Let's find out who truly is the fastest of the fast. And that's really where, all this originated. And back then I was hosting a live stream monthly for SolidWorks users, which was like a tips and tricks type of thing. But I had a little contest in there. It wasn't a modeling contest yet. The modeling contest kind of evolved over time. But there was a little contest in there, and that's kind of how this idea of like really involving the chat began, and involving the customers and kind of like showing them some love, because it's, you know, for me, it's always been all about the community. Like I get in there and I'm a user, you know, I'm a SolidWorks user. I'm in there in the community with them. I understand the pains they're going through, and like whatever I can do to help share tips and tricks to help them get better. That's really what kind of drives me along the way. So, you know, from those little contests over the years, it evolved. And eventually it became an actual speed modeling competition, a speed modeling contest. So the way that the contest works on Model Monday Live, like you mentioned in the intro, Richard, is, you know, I get out there on the live stream, I share a 2D print and I say, go. And the chat tries to turn that 2D print into a 3D model. And it doesn't matter what CAD system you have. If you have SolidWorks, if you have Onshape, you know, whatever you have, as long as you can assign a mass property of density to your material, you can output what the final mass of that 3D geometry is. And once you do that, you know, whoever gets it right first, whoever types it into the chat first, they're the winner. They get the point, you know, or whatever the prize happens to be that week.
I like it. Keep it simple, right? And I love your take on community, Toby. I think, you know, I feel the same way and always have. You know, bringing people together to share tips, share information, to help each other out. You know, whatever it takes. Let's just talk. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, a lot of times when it comes to you know, true CAD enthusiasts, like we're kind of like you know, punk rockers in nerd clothing, you know, like there's a lot, I think, that like runs through that community, you know, and when people are really into it, it's like we've been in that spot where it's just like you have to come up with a model and you have to come up with it right now, you know, because if you can get it out the door right now, you're going to be able to save your company time. You're going to be able to save your team time. You know, maybe those machines in the shop are going to sit idle all weekend if you get done at 5:05. But if you get done at 4:55 in the afternoon, you can actually get that part to the machinist, and those machines can be cutting chips over the weekend. You know, maybe that ends up moving up your delivery date by a few days or even a few weeks. You know, it can make a big difference. And so kind of being in that situation, being under the pressure of like having, you know, I've had guys that run the machine shop literally standing over my shoulder watching me, like, you know, and of course, like they're shop guys. So they're like, clock's ticking, Tobe. Like I'm not under enough pressure already, you know, but I think it's like a good experience. And I think that anytime you can practice that skill, you know, it could potentially come into play in like a clutch situation where you really just got to get that model out the door.
Yeah, you bet. Well, that's great. And, you know, I think the one episode that I did see, it seemed like it was SolidWorks users mostly, but we did have one Onshaper that was involved in that particular contest. And we've got a little surprise for you. We've got a couple of the previous competitors of your modeling contests that are joining us today. So let's bring in Tom Smith and Alnis Smidchens.
Oh, yeah. Hello, what's up, Tom?
Hey, Toby.
Hey, Alnis. What's up, homie?
Hello. Hey, I do have to say, I see your red special there, and I have to say the red, white, and black special is the better guitar.
EVH, Eddie.
Wow.
There we go.
Eddie Van Halen.
Nice.
Man.
Nicely done.
So Alnis, you know, I think most of our listeners, viewers probably know a lot about you already, having been an Onshape user for several years and become one of the top Onshape users. What are you up to these days?
Well, unfortunately, it's a lot of paperwork. I've managed to bumble my way into being the lead of a couple of engineering projects, and it's been a lot of fun helping folks out with CAD. So, for example, we're currently building an underwater robot that's going to be going to the MATE International Championship in a month or so. We have a lot of work still to be done on that. A lot of that is documentation stuff, but also a lot of it is some really cool design stuff that we've been working on.
Nice. So you're keeping yourself pretty busy then.
Yeah.
As always. Tom, welcome to the show. Tom is a longtime user. You can see his little CSE.
CSWE, yeah.
Which,
I'm a CSWE as well. How many CSWEs are on the call?
Boom.
All right.
Okay. How many CSWPs? I never got to eat.
Yeah.
But Tom is the speed modeler. He's won Model Mania at SolidWorks World twice and actually come in second twice.
How many Model
yeah.
Mania champions on the call?
Oh.
Yeah, Toby. That's it. Yeah.
How many people are over 6'3" on the call? Let's just keep whittling it down to this is one champion.
All right. I got to be. How many people over 60 on the call? There we go. All right. I got you all that time. Tom, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself? What do you do, and where do you work, and who are you?
I'm an engineer. Went to Stevens Institute for a Bachelor of Engineering, and currently work at Victaulic. I don't do engineering anymore, though. I'm all in IT. I run the SolidWorks PDM system, and I'm the local guru that people go to when people have trouble. I've known Toby probably for 15 years now, since the place I joined. He was the reseller there. So Toby, is it true when I started at that place, like the service calls to the reseller dried up because I was answering them all?
Yeah, it was so weird. Yeah, it's like we never get calls from them ever since Tom started. I don't know what happened. We always used to talk about that in support.
So I've been SolidWorks user for 24 years now, so it's been a while. And when I joined that place, it wasn't until 2012 that we went to SolidWorks World. And we're sitting there in the audience, and the guys, going up on stage about this Model Mania contest. And my coworker, gives me an elbow. He says, "You should have done that. You would have been good." I'm like, well, now you tell me, thanks. So it wasn't until the next year, 2013, we went back. So I tried it out. I got second place. I'm like, okay, this wasn't so hard. The next year, I got first place. Like, all right, But yeah, no, I've even when I was interviewing for that job, it was back in 2008. He's like, the guy was, my manager was like, he's like, there's a bunch of people we're looking at for this job. Like, why should we pick you? And I'm like, I'm the fastest SolidWorks guy you've ever met. I just said that to him, Even back then, I knew I was pretty quick. The place I worked at before that, from 97 to 07, we didn't even have internet. The guy, the boss there, like, thought it was some newfangled thing. So, like, nowadays you can download a gearbox and a motor and a bearing. We had to draw it all. So I had to wait for the thing to come in, pull it off the truck, get the calipers out and measure it up, and just doing that and having to do that quickly, so I can put it in the model and then design with it. It just got me thinking fast, like, okay, here's this thing, I got to draw it. It's got to be done now. And that's how I, kind of knew I was pretty quick. I didn't know I was quick on the world level quick, but I knew I was quick. So yeah, I won, Model Mania a couple times here and there. I had a dry spell in between. I guess I got too confident myself. I forgot to set material or something like that. Then, I guess, what was it? 17 and 18 got first and second again. I keep trying every year. It's a lot of fun. It's a big, apparently a big honor,
Well, Tom, what do you attribute? Like, there's got to be something special here that you're doing. You don't want to spill all the secrets, obviously.
No, I usually tell, like, if you want to, like Toby said before, if you want to, you just need 20 years of practice. It's very simple. But no, really, like, find stuff on your desk, like find, a roll of tape, find a flashlight, measure it and draw it, and just draw your desk. I'm sure you have a ton of crap on your desk and a lot of weird things that you may not draw all the time, but just picking up and make a model, it's great practice. So yeah, and then during the when Toby was at the reseller, he's had to do the Toby Tech Talk, and you learn tips and tricks on how to get faster. Even he had the contests there. Then when he switched to running in SolidWorks, I got worried that there was going to be no more Toby Tech Talk, but he somehow figured out to do it at home. So I'm always in for the speed modeling contest, even if there's no grand prize. It's always a lot of fun to work on stuff and draw real fast. Like,
yeah, you can see that in the comments during the contest. It is a lot of fun to watch. Alnis, what compelled you to get involved with Toby's speed modeling contest? The episode that I watched, you were just a millisecond from moving on to the next round. and we were all rooting for you there. But how did you get involved? How did you run across this?
Oh, well, I was searching online to see what more CAD practice could I do. I'd already gone through like a lot of PDFs of drawings, and I was just trying to figure out, okay, where can I go for more stuff to do? And I found Toby's channel, and oh my gosh, it was fantastic. Because not only there were these drawings, but there was this competitive format where you can get involved. So that's really what attracted me to it.
Nice. What about so speed modeling? And I've watched you several times now. And I'm just astounded every time I get to see you speed through a design. What kind of tips? What kind of advice would you offer to people that want to get involved in these kinds of speed modeling contests?
I'd say practice is really key, especially for the format, because it's a very special format to have like a drawing, and you need to make a 3D part as fast as possible from it. So what I'd say is not just doing a drawing and making the part once, but try to do that a few times and figure out what's kind of the best path forwards and practice taking that path. Another thing along taking that path to the best, fastest model is to just really be familiar with all the ways you can activate tools in your software. So for example, oftentimes searching for a tool might even be faster if your hand's already on the keyboard than navigating to the menu. And finally, just make sure you have the right units and material available, because not having those, oh my gosh, that can be quite a delay.
Yeah, that kind of messes with the calculations at the end, I guess.
Ask me how I know.
No, I think it's really special to have both you guys on, Alnis, because what you said is like one of my target audiences for these contests, for the competitions, really for my whole YouTube channel, for the whole Too Tall Toby YouTube channel, is for people who are maybe just getting started in the software, looking for some practice models. There's a lot of times where people are asking, like, where can I get a hold of practice models? I want to get better and better with the software. So I'm really glad to hear that that's what attracted you to this format, was getting a hold of those practice models. And all the previous, or a lot of the previous practice models are there as standalone videos too, if anybody's out there and wants to practice. But also, Tom, to what you said, like, here you are a SolidWorks expert, use the software for many, many years, but now your role in your company doesn't really allow you to use the software as much. And so this is like the other part of my target audience is maybe people who have moved on to a managerial role, or for whatever reason, they just don't use the software enough at work anymore. Well, this gives you like a very specific kind of like a bite-size, task where you can still get in there and use the software and like really test your skills and see if you still got it. And like Alnis said, if you do feel like you're lagging behind, this kind of lets you know where everybody else in the community is. And then you can just keep practicing and practicing and practicing until you whittle that time down. So, I think it's so awesome that both of you guys are on, guys who have been in the community, guys who have done the competition, and especially guys who are my target audience. I want people who maybe need some beginning modeling practice, but also people who maybe just don't get to use the software as much anymore and want to get in there and kind of, get their hands wet again.
Yeah, it's true. I don't use SolidWorks as much as I used to for like the last 5 years, really. I still use it for little home projects and stuff like that, but I just don't get into the depth of, making the bill of material and everything anymore. So, but everyone, all day I get calls from people like, oh, I'm stuck with this. How do you do this? I can keep up with that, but yeah, working with it at home, I try to keep, and Toby's thing, definitely keep up the speed.
And on this, I know you're an Onshape user, and this live stream is going to be going out to a lot of Onshape users. Do you feel like the challenges that are on the Too Tall Toby channel are good for Onshape users or for beginning Onshape users?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since so many of the tools are familiar between different CAD software. If you know kind of one CAD system, you can often pick up another. And if you know the best way to do something in one CAD system, oftentimes you can find kind of analogs to that in terms of the other software. So while there might be slight differences, ultimately a lot of the same stuff like finding symmetry and pattern opportunities, figuring out how you want to orient your part, that stuff is all applicable across any CAD system.
Awesome, man. That's great feedback. Thanks.
Yep. And I hope we can get some more Onshape users to come over and compete in your contest, Toby. I would like to point out, we were talking about public models. I would like to point out that Onshape has an extensive library of public models that can be downloaded and take a look at. So if you're interested in improving your skills and looking to see what other folks are doing, that's always a great way to do that, is to work your way through somebody else's model and pick up some tips along the way. Gentlemen, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to thank you all for being here. Toby, Alnis, Tom, any last words from any of you? I guess we talked you guys out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
thanks a lot for having us on. I think these guys are you know, it's awesome. You know, I think Alnis really like epitomizes the spirit of this competition, of this contest, of this exercise, which is like, I want to bring in everybody from, you know, from any CAD system, because at the end of the day, it's just going to make you a stronger user. It's going to make you more versatile. And so I appreciate you, you know, letting me, you know, kind of advertise a little bit about it. If you guys want to check it out, the YouTube channel is Too Tall Toby. And the live streams are usually on Mondays. So, you know, just take a look, subscribe, and you'll find out when the next live stream, when the next competition is.
Yeah, it's a great event. It's always a lot of fun. It's very vibrant. There's lots of conversations happening. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And you get to meet some, you know, maybe at least virtually meet some incredible people, and some people that you may not have, you know, run into in the past. So.
Yeah.
And I still get that little nervous rush, like, oh my God, I'm up against all these fast guys. You know, I try to crank it out, you know, you get those little jitters, you know, right?
That's awesome.
It's so much fun.
The butterflies.
Yep. The butterflies. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks again, gentlemen.
Nice
Thanks for having me on the show.
See you, Alnis. Toby, I have one other question for you.
Sure.
If we have, I think you have a minute. But
We're going into overtime.
We're going into overtime. All right. I always like to ask this question. Like, what is your origin story in CAD? Like, if you can do it in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, I mean, origin story is started out in working at a company that did progressive die design, sheet metal, progressive die design.
Oh, yeah.
Went from there to working in that same company with the prototyping department, doing like wire EDM and weldment fixture design. So a lot of like the Stako clamps and, you know, holding stuff together and just helping the prototype department. From there, got a job doing a little bit of mold making, plastic injection mold making, and learned a little bit more about like how A-side, B-side and inserts work in mold making. And then from there, basically when I was still pretty young, went to work with the reseller and did a lot of training and a lot of tech support. I've taught hundreds of classes, literally hundreds of classes, and I've done over 10,000 tech support cases. Mm-hmm. So a lot of tech support, a lot of training. And that's really what I like. I mean, I think the ability to take something from your brain and share it with somebody else that's going to make their life a little bit better is a blessing. And so I managed to get very fortunate throughout a big part of my career, teaching people and just sharing tips and tricks. And so now I get to keep doing it.
Community. You've done a lot, and we all should be thankful that
somebody
like you is here to make CAD interesting, CAD fun, and it's really great. And you know, having those experiences in progressive die design and mold design, those are complex things, right? So you are really thrown in, and perhaps that's part of the reason why you're pretty good at your job. Because,
thanks, man.
You know, that's really throwing you into the deep end of the pool as a young person in a career in that field. So I know I've seen those things. They're not easy. So
yeah, easy to overlook, like things that, you know, the old timers consider simple, and they're like, "Why do you can't put that fillet there? Like that's not gonna work at all." And then you're like, "Oh no, yeah, you're right." When you explain it, yeah, it makes sense. But you know, it's you learn these lessons over time.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me, and again, great job with the show, and keep it up.
Thanks, Toby. We'll see you around.
Toby.
All right, it's always good.
Wow, that was great, huh?
Yeah. It's good to talk about you know, these things that Alnis and Tom and Toby were talking about are very good for anybody using Onshape or any other CAD system, feature-based system for that matter, right? So, you know, it's really, really good to remember all the things that were just said here today. I hope you were taking notes because I wasn't. But no, I'm sorry.
We'll just watch the show again.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have an Onshape user coming on next.
We do.
Yeah.
And since we're talking all about CAD modeling today, I thought it'd be a good idea to have one of the top modelers, one of the top Onshape users in. Sam Holland has been around for quite a while, and we're hoping that Sam can share some of his approach to CAD modeling, whether that be part studios in Onshape or assemblies, best practices. You know, what's behind your CAD modeling skills there, Sam?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the show. Yeah.
as Toby mentioned, like it's all about, making sure what you're doing is something that somebody else can pick up and understand. And there's a million ways to model a 3D object, and some of them are faster, some of them are more robust, and some of them can like tell a story. And so when I'm 3D modeling, I always try and remember, like 6 months from now, when I go back to change a part, am I going to remember how I did this? And so sometimes that's taking a feature that could be built in one extrude and separating it into 3. So I understand, what's happening here, or using variables and defining them very clearly at the top of my part studio and saying, this is my nominal wall thickness, this is my ribs, and just trying to pass that information on in such a way that it's intuitive for somebody else, but most likely me in a couple months when I forget what was going on. So I do a lot of consumer product design and development, and that's a lot of cyclical work where you do 2-3 months of design, you wait for prototypes, and you have to go back and make changes. And so I'm always trying to make future me happy with the CAD I did in the past.
And I assume that you do things like making sure that your features are all properly named. That your sketches are all fully defined whenever possible.
Always. No blue sketches ever. That'll keep me up at night. I love grouping my features into folders that are really clearly labeled, like screw bosses or motor mount or whatever is happening, usually happens in a single folder, and try and go through them hierarchically. Is that the word? In order.
I think you got it close enough.
So that way I can scroll up and make changes, and hopefully things are propagating correctly. I learned very early on the mistakes of, dimensioning to wrong features of a part. And you grow the outside box of a product, and all the screw bosses might have flown away instead of stayed where you want them. So when I'm creating models now, there's always the intent of what are these features doing and what are they related to in the rest of the model? And if I do need to make a change somewhere else, how do I make sure that it's scalable and I'm not going back and using a screw boss as an analogy again? Like if I'm putting a screw boss down and there's a mating feature, I don't want to recreate that in 2 different sketches with 2 different dimensions and have to, hunt that down later on. Those should all be driven by the same skeleton sketch. So love doing skeleton models where you're, laying out screw bosses and planes and things like that you reference in other models later on. And, the golden CAD model would be where you could make one sketch change and everything propagates down correctly.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten there yet, but I've gotten close.
How has skeleton modeling been, in your experience with Onshape? Is it fairly straightforward?
It's amazing. Yeah, I think I created a public model, which is a demonstration of doing some plastic designs. Plastic injection molding cases. And all of that was created with skeleton models. And the derive feature, you can create a part studio with all your skeleton parts and then derive in certain sketches and placements. And I just love using the part studios and the derive tool for that reason. I even found a way to define things like nominal wall thickness in your skeleton model and propagate that down to all your parts as well. And that gets really, really helpful when you're trying to reduce sink marks or, make sure that a part that you shell later on is referencing the right nominal.
I'll go ahead here and remind folks that model that you were just talking about was actually our model of the week for episode 17 and is available. The link is available on our YouTube channel. So check it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good one. It really does a great job of showing a full document with, PDFs inside of it, multiple part studio kind of setup where you have multiple parts in one part studio. Is I believe variables in it. It's really good. Well done.
Yeah, I try and do like a diamond. If you look at it as like a family tree of parts, it's almost a diamond shape where you have one skeleton sketch that defines multiple parts that go into sub-assemblies that then come back together at the end. So it's, your final part and your original are one item, but there's, everything branches and comes back together.
What was the name of that model again in the public, Sam? I'm just going to spin it around.
I'll have to look it up. I think it was plastic enclosure. That's a generic name. I should probably rename it something less generic.
That's all right.
And while you guys are searching for that, Sam, let's talk about assembly modeling for a second. Onshape has these things called mate connectors, which once you learn all of the things they can do are just outstanding. What about some tips for assemblies and using mate connectors for different purposes?
I think that was one of the things that really sped my abilities up in Onshape compared to other tools. I came from SolidWorks. I was a CSWP certified professional, and moving to Onshape, the ability to define positions using mate connectors, it's crazy fast. Things like, locking rotation with the fasten mate, or allowing sliding, or the cylindrical mate where you can, have certain degrees of freedom. You can really lock down a part with 1 or 2 mates in most cases, which in other tools may take 2, 3 mates, depending on the use case. But I also use them frequently for deriving parts. I do a lot of multi-body modeling. And if I'm pulling in, a screen or a battery that's off the shelf from a vendor, I derive that from a part studio and I transform it into position using mate connectors. And that's been huge, is, defining this origin of reference and then moving it and translating it based on there.
Yep. And they can also be used as sketch planes. That can be used as mirror lines. Just the mate connector was just a fantastic addition to Onshape that just blows my mind every single time.
Yeah, saves you so much reference geometry creation. There's there is a blog we did recently, 1,000,001 uses of it. I think it was 20 something.
I think it was Katie Huffman that did that one, right? Yeah. And she did a presentation at one of the user group meetings as well. That was very well received. So
yeah, we'll put a link to your model there, Sam, in the show notes so people can take a look at it. It's a great model, and thank you so much for sharing it with everybody.
Of course.
And thanks for being on the show and sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate that. And I think this is the second time we've had you on. You're a great guest, and we hope to have you back on many times in the future. So.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I'll see you guys soon.
All right, thanks, Sam.
Yeah, bye. Informal.cc is where you can find Sam. So make sure you check out his work. All right.
Oh, we're not finished yet, are we?
Sam. We are not finished. we cannot shut down. It's too hot to shut down. We have Nacho Montez here on the call. Welcome to the show, Nacho.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, Nacho. Thanks for coming.
Nacho, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into the tech tip of the week.
Absolutely. I'm one of the engineers here at Onshape. I am originally from Spain, but I've been here for quite a while now. And I've always loved manufacturing and building and fabricating. I started, I guess, to the previous question, my journey in CAD in a steel shop and eventually moved to 3D printing lab. And now I've touched quite a lot of different manufacturing spaces. And I've been with Onshape for the past 2 years, building a lot of different things with the product, and it's been wonderful.
Excellent. So the model of the week, or not the model of the week, the tip of the week, there's lots of stuff going on, but tip of the week is one that you authored this week. Maybe we can, I'll pull it up here on the screen here to discuss, and you can tell us, I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell us about this tech tip and why you think it's cool, and maybe you can give us a little more info on it.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone that has not tried Render Studio in Onshape, I really encourage you to give it a whirl. It's a truly amazing tool. What you can do with Render Studio, it's just fast and awesome. The things that you can kind of render and create a representation of are just fascinating. So this tip is a little bit on once you start to move into a little bit more of the advanced use cases and you want to create texturing for objects. So we have a lot of pre-built textures and materials that come with textures, and all of those are wonderful and have a lot of different use cases. But there's going to be moments where you're going to want to define your own material, and you might want to start with a base that might, I usually use a material called the clear coat. And these materials are very flexible, but you are going to want to customize them in very different ways. So the first thing that this tech tip delineates is how to leverage textures, and it goes over the purling noise texture, which is a very, very useful one that can create a lot of different feelings and aesthetics for parts that you're working with.
Yeah, you've been building some really interesting renders lately. You did a lightsaber recently. You did a pet door. And you've really done a great job with identifying the textures to make it look like a real thing. You look at it and it's like, is this a photo or is this a render? Right? You kind of get that feeling when you do things just a little bit extra. And this is like that little bit extra. It's like you've watched that Spinal Tap movie, turning the amp up to 11, right? It's this little extra stuff that you're doing here. And that's what this tech tip really does a good job at doing.
Yeah, we love turning up to 11 here at Onshape. So, and I think that's certainly part of the beauty of rendering, right? You're a photographer looking through a 2D screen, but you also have to define the picture that you're about to take. And I think that there's a thrill in doing that, because you not only get to define the angle at which you're taking the picture, but you also get to really define the lighting and what actually exists in that picture. So my approach to rendering, definitely, I think a lot of it is coming at it with some type of virtual camera. Obviously, there is actual virtual cameras in there, and really defining the image that you want to create with the software. And there's a lot of depth to what rendering is about.
Exactly. What would be, just kind of, off the cuff here, what was like the most important thing you figured out in the few months now that we've been doing rendering inside of Onshape? Is there like one special thing? Was this the special thing, or do you have any other kind of things? I see the next tech tip next week is from our our colleague, Paul Simone, and he's also done another rendering tech tip for the next week. So, there's, what is your favorite part? Actually, I should just ask you that. What's your favorite part? Like, why do you think this is a valuable tool to have in your quiver?
Yeah, I think rendering really allows for us CAD users to contextualize to everyone else, because we look at a CAD model and we see an object and we see the design intent, as Sam was mentioning. And I think that there's a lot of value in how we portray these things, but a regular user, a regular person might not identify with a CAD model as much. I think rendering really bridges the gap between what we see when we look at a CAD model and what any person that you can find in the street actually sees. You get to really contextualize what you're designing for people and give it life in a way that CAD purely doesn't necessarily bring to the table. And I find that really beautiful, because again, it's when you're taking a picture and framing that in a way that you feel happy with it. And all of us are a little bit OCD, I'm sure, so you always tweak it 1,000 times.
Exactly.
That was a great answer, Nacho. Thank you.
Cool. Well, tech tip, check it out. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. And I just gave you a little spoiler. The tech tip next week or this week when you're actually listening to it will also be on rendering. So check that out as well and compare notes. So it will be it'll be great. It looks like we all are still here.
I think we lost young Alnis.
Did we lose Alnis? Well, it's all right. We can we'll catch up with him again. He's a member of the family here.
That's right.
At Onshape, obviously. But let's bring back Tom and Sam and Toby. And I always think it's awesome to make sure that everybody sees us all in one page and we get a chance to say a little final word or a little wave here. But I really do want to thank everybody for joining and sticking around here. It's always good to have a chat with a bunch of engineers. Right.
And hopefully all of you will tune in for our next episode. We've got a great one coming up. Our next episode will be all about our Onshape partners, and we've got a great lineup of guests. We've got Mark DiGregorio. Wow, that's one's a hard one to say, from OnScale. Keith Rice from CAD Sharp will be here. Keith is a long-time CAD guy, community guy.
API,
we've known each other for many years. And we'll also have our Onshape Partner Success Manager, Aaron Magnan, come in and talk a little bit about our Onshape partners. So we hope everybody will tune in for that. In the meantime, please subscribe, hit the like button if you like what you saw. And I think that's it for this week. Don't you think, Mike?
I think so. Yes. Thanks again, everybody. And
right.
See you next time. Same bat place.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yep, thanks, guys.